I think I've got everything organized. Oh, where's the red line? There's a red line here. I've been told not to step outside of that red line, so I'll try and stay within it on that. Yeah, I'll just quickly go over, as you know, I guess it was 2 months ago, November, December, Riel gave a talk about some of his experiences in assignments overseas with Catalyst. I'll just, in case somebody had not been at Riel's talk, I'll just quickly go over what Catalyst Plus actually is. It's formerly known as CASO, Canadian Executive Services Overseas. This is not something new for beekeepers. There's been a few beekeepers that have been in projects quite a while ago. I think Ted Schoenman was involved, Peter Veldhuis, I think, was involved in the Catalyst or the CASO programs as well on that. It's an economic development organization. It's an arm's length from Global Canada, Global Affairs. It offers mentorship and advisory services to strengthen economies in Canada and other emerging countries. It connects advisors with partners and clients, 30 countries, and it's also in the Indigenous communities in Canada as well. Canadian professionals who volunteer their knowledge and expertise to support sustainable and inclusive.
Pretend I'm not here. My mic is too close to yours.
Is that better?
It is better.
Good.
You're welcome.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah, and strengthen governance for economic growth. There's four, so the focus areas of Catalyst Plus, the ones that are starved there is agribusiness, environment, climate action, gender equality, governance, natural resource management, tourism and hospitality, and MSME, which is micro, small, and medium enterprises. I started the agribusiness and the enterprise, the micro and small. That's where our expertise is used in apiculture. I put this up here. I know a lot of you have other opportunities with your work and whatnot. These are some of the areas that are actually open for to become an advisor on some projects. Riel went through, and I'll just quickly go through this of how do you become an advisor. There's an application, you have to provide references, police record check. I was lucky. I don't know if anybody's gone through a police record check lately. What they do is they ask your name and a birth date. You'll get, even if you got no conviction, you could get called back for a fingerprint and a further involvement in the police record check. You can't change your birth date, but you can change your name. And that's the reason they sort by birth dates. So you can always look on that. There's interviews. You do an interview with Catalyst Plus. Online courses, lots of those, hours and hours of different courses on that. You finally get accepted as an advisor, and then you can apply for an assignment. I was different. I applied as an advisor. Before I even started the application process, they told me I had a job to do in Africa. So I did everything backwards on that, but I still had to go through all the process there. You apply for an assignment, you get accepted by the client, and then you start the Zoom meetings with the client and the in-country staff. With Ethiopia, I've been fighting a cold for about 2 weeks now, but they have an 8-year strategy in Ethiopia, and they looked at what agricultural activity they could provide expertise for to help women in small communities provide an extra income. They picked beekeeping. So the strategy was before COVID. It got slowed down at that time. There's conflict in Ethiopia, which again delayed it. So there's only been 3 or 4 advisors have gone to Ethiopia on this project. It started 2018, 2019, so there's a lot to do. More Zoom meetings with the Catalyst people. We prepare your presentations, get ready to do your field work, and off you go. Then, that's when the fun part starts on that. Just to quickly, in the country, once you get there, You meet up with your in-country team. There's two ladies at the back here. They arrange for your hotel when you're in there. They check in. With me, they were checking in every day, just making sure that everything's still safe, and lots of need-to-know information about what you may experience in Ethiopia. As I mentioned, there is a little bit of turmoil in Sudan, as you know. There's been some there's been some conflict there, which has spilled over into the northern regions of Ethiopia as well. Assignments, my first one was at the Wright-Out Research Station, and my second one was with Green Face Trading. Now, we mentioned, we both have mentioned that you get your assignments, you get all your field work ready, and you're told who you're going to be working with. So I was told when I went to Wright-Out that I'll be working with 9 women and be teaching them some beekeeping skills on selecting bees. When I got there, I ended up that I was actually working with the researchers, some people that have got very extensive knowledge in beekeeping. Again, as I just mentioned, Ethiopia here, here's Addis Ababa here. Oromia region is the area that I was in. I was at Wright-Out, which is just about where the A is at Addis. 40 kilometers from Addis, takes about an hour and a half to get there on that there. Again, Kenya at the bottom, and Sudan, Eritrea, and then Egypt is just above that as well. Some fun facts: landlocked country. The import and export is through Djibouti, which is part of Eritrea, and on the northeast part there. Addis Ababa is the capital. It's about the size of Ontario, population of 132 million. 80% live in the rural areas. Origin of coffee, sorghum, and castor beans, and it's very high. Wright-Out, the research station, is 2,400 meters. I think one of the highest cities in Canada is maybe 12 or 1,300. So it's quite a high country with lots of rolling hills, but are actually quite high mountains. Beekeeping in Ethiopia, their estimates, really hard to find out. There's information from Ethiopia. You look at the FAO and some other statistics and whatnot, they vary quite a bit. Over 2 million beekeepers, 6 million colonies plus 4 million wild colonies, feral colonies. 96% of the bees are kept in traditional hives, 1.3 in transitional, and 2.8 in modern. They have 2 honey seasons, April and May, and September and November. They've identified over 7,000 flowering trees and shrubs. Honey production, 194,000 metric tons. Just to give you an idea, they're in the top 10 honey-producing countries in the world. Canada produces about 50,000, so they produce a lot more than us. On that, 89% of their honey production goes to the manufacturing of tej, which is honey wine. I think it's 13% is for domestic use, and 1% of that is for export. Wax, 13,000 metric tons, top 5 producing country in the world. It's a big deal over there. All organic honey and beeswax. They export honey to EU, the UK, Dubai, Japan, United States, and a small amount comes into Canada. Honeybees, they have different species of honeybees. You may recognize some of the top, well, how do I go back? Here we go. The wrong button, the Monticola scutella, that's the one half for the Africanized bee, Bandacy, then there's 3 more down here. I just mentioned the dwarf honeybee because that's something that is in the news now, that it's actually in Malta, which is where we source bees in Canada. There's been some talk that all of these first 6 there are actually one species. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done in the African research on that. It's actually interesting as well as these Monticola and scutella species there are very aggressive, but if you go to Sudan, they're very docile. And what's the reason? It could be environmental reasons for that as well. On the bottom, I've got here dependency syndrome. And that's a loose translation. That was the best that they could come up with. And what they were meaning is that the bees in African bees are not reliant on honey production. Like our bee, the European bees, we have a winter season. They need to store a lot of honey, so they're actually, that's what they do. They store a lot of honey. African bees don't. They don't need to because they recognize that they can actually get honey anytime. So anytime during the year on that as well. I should mention, yeah, okay. I was just going to say that, yeah, it's 12 hours daylight year round. We're at 9 degrees latitude, so the temperature is quite constant. There's no freezing even at 2,400 meters that you're not going to have frost. So it's just an interesting way that they look at the African bee. So it's off to Holetta. This is in downtown Addis. Whoops, I hit the wrong button again. Okay, I'm still inside the red line. I'm watching that, Brad. On this picture here, you'll see that there's 4 lanes of cars there. This is actually a 3-lane road. Okay, and it's I at one time sort of said that vehicles have the right of way and pedestrians have a right of way. It's crazy trying to walk or to try and drive in this city. As I mentioned, it takes hours to go very short distance. Again, just because of the congestion of traffic. They have traffic circles, which are just a free-for-all. And you've got 10 cars wide, all trying to go in, and they're stopping and starting. Very nerve-wracking on that. On the right-hand picture, this is on the highway to Holetta. You have to deal with vehicles. You've got motorcycles in there and also pack horses in there as well. Oops. On the way, this doesn't show up too well. I should have put these on separate slides. This here is an open market, 3 days a week, and it probably is the size of about 6 football fields. It's just huge. And this is where most of the local people come to sell their whatever wares that they've got and to purchase that as well. You'll also run across baboons on the highway. On the way from Addis to Holetta they're starting a nature reserve, and they've reclaimed the land, and now the animals are moving back in. And you'll see these are everywhere that you can think of. Monkeys, everything all over the place, but you just have to watch out for the baboons. In Holetta, this is the hotel I stayed at. Very nice accommodation on there. On this picture here, very difficult to see, but that's a bus. Sorry, I should have, looking on my screen and projecting it here, there's a bus here, there's people on the top, luggage on that. They've just came back from the border area, which is against Sudan. It's about 1,000 kilometers. They can go 500 kilometers, and at that point, the bus stops and waits till the military come, and then the military escorts them to the border. Again, just the traffic on here. This is a 3-wheeled taxi, and worth your life because they usually take the corners too fast and over they go, and then you get up and go again. On the picture on the right there is, this is taken from a restaurant in Holetta, and this is just a living area here. Very, very poor area on that as well. But I did want to point out there's 2 things right there. Those are your telephone, TV dishes. So they do have electricity, and TVs are important. They weren't in the hotel. I had a TV, but it didn't work. And the other hotel I stayed in had nighttime tables, and then it was unplugged, and you look at the plug, and it was an American plug, which doesn't fit into the socket. So, lots of fun. Holetta Bee Research Station, again, this is the vision is to aspire to see improved and sustainable livelihood for beekeepers in their region in the coming 10 years. They have a vision statement there. On the right here is the staff. This is all the researchers. There's Kibabu at the back, who's the head of the station. There's people there. There's one fellow there that has wrote many books on the flora of Ethiopian honey. The lady right here, Meseret, is in added value products for beekeeping, mostly in propolis and pollen production. There's a geneticist over here. The back 4 or 5 people, they're all honey management people, and a disease specialist there as well. This is, again, they have a series of buildings on the side here. This is one of the out labs that they've got. On this side, they're actually building a new research station. This is 3 stories. There's over 200 people involved in beekeeping at this station. So it's instead of having all these buildings all over the place, they're all going to be in one spot. This was 2023. Again, the fellow on the top there, again, just standing on the rebar as they get ready to start pouring concrete. That was in May of 2023, and my last understanding is it's not quite finished yet, so they're getting there. I should also mention too is that the inflation rate is about 30%. Very hard to get any money and for any type of research equipment or on that part of it as well. They do research on honeybees and also stingless bees. They work with stingless bees. They started off, this is in a shed, as a covered building. At the lid over the roof on this side. They started putting these pots on the stand, and they were hoping that the stingless bees would colonize these pots up in the air just to make it easier to manage. And of course it didn't work. And they ended up having the pots in the ground here. This is just a close-up of that there. This is a clay pot. You can take the top off. So they would just dig around the edges, the dirt around there, so they could get the lid off. And then right in the middle, it's propolized, but there is a small entrance there for the bee. It produces about 3/4 of a liter of nectar a year that they can sell. Very expensive, but it's just another way of keeping bees. Some of the issues in Ethiopia with the bees, aggressive behavior, very much so. As I mentioned, it can be quite an adventure working with their bees. The management of bees is minimal. Again, just because of the aggressiveness, if a beekeeper looks at his hives 3 times a year, he's doing really well. So they're pretty much left on their own. As I mentioned with the dependency, is that if it's a dry season, they'll abscond. It's either due to no nectar or there's pests. They have predators, ants, honey badgers, birds, wax moth, humans. Theft is a huge issue. Diseases and pests. This is a picture of the large hive beetle. That's the beetle there, and if that's a bee. So you can see it's about 3 times the size. Not related to small hive beetle, but they call it the large hive beetle. It has a different biology. They don't actually reproduce in the hive. They just come in and eat the hive, eat the wax and the comb. Varroa is not a pest. They don't sample for it. They do at the station, but nobody else, a regular beekeeper is not really concerned about it. Cultural treatments are the only options for that. Again, I mentioned the different types of hives. On the left there is a traditional hive, and it's hung from a tree. It'll have an end opening here. You'll see some better pictures of that as well. And that would be how they would access into the hive to collect the nectar. And from that, usually it's the destruction of the hive. They would rebuild this, hang it in the tree, and hope that a swarm would come and colonize that. In the middle is a transition hive. This is probably the next biggest part here is about 13 or 14% of those 6 million colonies are in transitional hives. They're very cheap to build. You'll see a picture here in a minute, usually just made out of sticks and mud and some type of hot lid on it. And the far right, the Xander hive, is what the modern hives are. Very similar to a Langstroth hive, a little bit smaller in dimensions on that as well. Very expensive, almost cost prohibitive for most beekeepers to use. These are the transitional hives, as you can see from that. There's just sticks and small sticks across, sealed off with some mud. These are 2, so there's one here and one there, so they're top to bottom there on that. Again, ants is a problem. You'll see that they put metal, all the hives are off the ground, and they just have a sheet of metal there to prevent the ants from going along. I'm just trying to... Oh, that didn't work. Sorry, that was a bit of a video of Is there this one? Oh, it's not going to work. Okay. Anyways, it's just oh, we're on an angle there, but you'll notice there's two smokers going into this hive, and you'll be familiar with those green frames there on that. Part of what we were trying to do is to see if these colonies would actually raise brood. So we had put in some drone brood on there. You'll notice that they shook the bees off that. The next frame, sorry, it's on an angle there, but if you pull they'll be pulling the next frame out, and before it stops there, you'll notice there's no bees on the frame. They're gone. They're flying around your head. They're crawling up your pant legs. They're everywhere. We finished working on those half a dozen hives. We walked back to the building. This is dark. You only work at your bees when it's dusk, when the sun goes down. They followed us for a good 150 yards before they finally gave up and came back. Flashlights are a necessity. You need flashlights so you can actually look in the comb to see if there's any eggs, because again, sunset. On that, back to Africa in 2024, this trip I was working with Greenface Trading Company. They produce packaged honey and beeswax, and Johnny was the main guy at Greenface, and also with Meritu Agro. Ebenezer that was his company on that as well, producing packaged honey, mostly for sale in Ethiopia and in Africa, but trying to branch out into different export markets on that as well. The honey sources, acacia is a big honey producer, eucalyptus trees, croton species, and schefflera trees at the back. Coffee is a new opportunity. They've actually now discovered that there's some very nice honey that can be actually made from the coffee plants, and Ebenezer has set up his operation on the southeast part of Ethiopia, down by Somaliland. On there. This is just a picture of the Greenpeace people here. Johnny's in the middle here, one of his head technicians, Ebenezer here, and then a couple of people from Holeta Research Station came down for a day for talking about honey and beeswax. Just quickly again, just some of the hives that Ebenezer has set up. He's using a combination. He's got Xander hives in here, and further down here is some of the traditional hives. Johnny is actually set up with Greenface Training there. He's set up his operation in a different way. He doesn't actually manage bees, but he manages beekeepers in communities. And he has identified, I think it's about 10 communities in the southeast of Oromia region, and there's identified a mentor in each one, and then they list people in the area to keep bees. Usually 3 to 5 hives. He's secured a grant through MasterCard that provides 3 colonies to any beekeeper that wishes to be involved in beekeeping, and the mentor is helping these people work along. The problem is, as I mentioned, is management is very minimal. So it's very hard to keep beekeepers involved in beekeeping when you're not actively involved with them, and you just hope at the end of the year that when you take the lid off, it's got honey. If it doesn't have honey, oh well, it didn't cost me anything because I didn't put any time into it and that. So education and trying to get people to actually look at their hives more than 3 times a year is what they're striving to do. Then Greenface would come along twice a year after the honey flow and pick up the honey and then take it back to a single central processing plant. Again, just a traditional hive. Again, you're using whatever materials that you have available. These are the transitional hives here with almost like a wooden pallet on the top. Everything has a roof. They always have bees with a roof over top of it. Again, the temperature's not that hot, but I think it's more just for the way I understand it, is just more to provide sort of a separation from anything else. As I mentioned, that some of these communities that have beekeepers in it have them in their backyards or their small plot of land. There's children running around, and there's a high chance that the bees are very aggressive. So how do you deal with that? And one way that they do with it is that they have indoor clothes and they have outdoor clothes. So if you're going outside, you wear these clothes, you don't wash them, and at the end of the day, you put them and drape them over the hive. And the idea behind that is that the bees recognize the smell, the pheromones that we would give off, and then that way is one way of protecting themselves from being stung. Again, it's just whatever you can find. This is almost just like a burlap sack, a plastic sack to use as a lid over your hives. And this is more of the advanced traditional hives there. You have the end that they would take off, they would reach in and they would pull the honey out. The problem with that is when you're doing that, you're pulling out the honey, you're also pulling out the nectar, and you're also pulling out the brood. And then when you mix that all together, you have it contaminated with all these different parts. So very low grade honey at this point. And that's where the traditional hives with the top is very similar to the Kenya top bar. You can actually take out just the honey and not destroy the colony, leave the bees in the brood in the center part. Much more efficient. And again, just different ways of setup on that. Processing, as I mentioned, the companies would go out, collect the honey from their communities. They would bring it back in a sack. These fellows, there's two fellows here, they're emptying a sack of honey, and they're dumping it in a big water jacketed tank there. No control over the heat, and they try and manage it so they don't burn the honey. And from there, it is then piped through there back into a wax press, and that's how they separate the wax from the honey. And that then go through a series of pumps, and there's strainers on the pump here before it goes into the bottling plant. Honey's perfectly good. It's just a lot of work. As you say, you're dealing with sacks. Now you got to clean the sacks before you take them out. Lots of wax kicking around on that as well. Trying to keep an eye on my time here, Tim, so let me know. This is Ebenezer's setup here. Same idea. You got to take this sack of honey that you go up the stairs there, dump it into the tank. This is not set up yet. It was at the wrong time of year. I have problems.
It's just the technology, that's all it is.
I think I moved my arms too much. Anyways, I'm just sort of saying that, this is not set up yet for processing. His wax press and pumping station would be there, and then filling up the tanks from there. A very low key, as you can see, you've got a heating tank here, and then just small tanks that is poured into, and then you're filling your containers from there. When I was over there, and it's very similar to what Riel was doing as well, we actually worked together in putting together our presentations, working with honey, producing creamed honey, flavored honey, beeswax and candles, trying to improve the quality of the wax, and also on candle production. I'll just say really quickly with the beeswax, and should just sort of mention all the people that helped us out. Tim up in the top corner there. Both Riel and I visited with Tim and got some excellent advice on how to make candles. John Russell up in the far right-hand corner here talking about creamed honey and flavored honey. Excellent, and thank you again for all that. And of course, we all know Riel. Down in the corner here, a guy that, like me, likes to hide. This is actually Ted Turnbull in the corner here, who gave us some very good advice on beeswax refining on that as well. Just as we know for creamed honey, that's some of the characteristics that what you're looking at. And this is just 3 different types of honey here. Whoops, there we go again. Just here that you're looking at the fructose and glucose ratios here. These are very similar to what we would find in our country, granulate very quick. This one here with the wide part there, it's a very slow granulation. And this is honey that's produced up in the northwest part of Ethiopia. Very fine honey. It never gets hard. It granulates, no crystals, nothing. It's really beautiful honey. Again, we're explaining the dice method for creamed honey. Some of the problems is just the lack of infrastructure. As I mentioned, that inflation rate is so high, their money is pretty useless. Nobody wants Ethiopian beer, so they don't be able to buy a lot of equipment and whatnot in there. And just for an example, we were trying to melt honey and heat honey. We're using just a double burner stove here. Again, in that we're trying to melt the seed honey here, and then we don't have the facilities to cool it. And they're all sitting there and trying to figure, well, if we block all the sun off and that. So same thing, we were looking at, trying to find people that they knew that had grocery stores or stored food or meat that might have a walk-in refrigerator that they could use as well. So a lot of things that they needed to, mixing stations, the same thing. And as John Russell had mentioned, you can't do large batches. Ebenezer was able to make some perfectly good creamed honey, just perfect. But once they got to make a 10 to 20 kilograms, it all fell apart. He doesn't have a good mixing system. And it's just a whole bunch of small things that they need to overcome before they can actually to do a lot of production of that. This is just new in the green face. Their market, their honey is Mardan honey. They now have ginger infused honey. So they've got that part of it working out for them. Beeswax, as I mentioned, rendering. The big thing is uneven heating, so you get burning. Their wax all has a lot of debris in it. So we're talking about different ways of trying to wash the honey to remove some of the debris. We did not do a lot of work with candles, again, where they had just plastic containers, which didn't work very well to make a candle. And as you can see, this is some of the things that we produced, but just the quality of the wax is quite different. The first trip I was there in 23, I was invited to Greenface, and this is how we got started. They were actually starting their local business of selling in Addis. And just to let you know, their honey is not cheap. In Addis, on the grocery store there was probably close to $10 or equivalent money for 500 grams. So it's not, you're thinking that, like the average salary is quite low, but honey is actually quite valuable on that as well. The other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot, I should have wrote a note there, is that one of Johnny's, I mentioned all the beekeepers in the community having 3 hives and they're not interested in that. He's trying to convince them that if they keep 20 hives, produce 1,000 kilograms of honey a year, 50 hives, 1,000 kilograms, which is 20 kilograms a hive, which is not about the average on that there. They would make more money than a university graduate. But it's just trying to motivate and keep people interested, and they're trying to do that through education and just management skills as well. Okay, 2 minutes. Where am I here? Again, this is just a seminar I was at. Mixed flour, which is produced in October to December. Just all different colors in there, used for Tej, the honey wine production. On that, 89% of their honey goes into that. On that, this is this very white honey from up in the Tigray area in the Northern Highlands. A spring honey, April to May, very white, natural, creamy, and they're hoping that this is going to be their potential for seed honey. It is actually a very nice honey for that. Never granulates very hard. Last part that I was with was the Ethiopian Apiculture Development Association. Asafa and Johnny from Greenface and the fellow on the right there. They've just been working to resurrect and start a development association. It started off as 3 associations, one for honey, one for wax, and one for export. They're now trying to bring, this has been going for just over a year, and their objectives are to improve the skills, training beekeepers, providing legal assistance in export. Again, they're really trying to improve their export and research, providing funds back to the different research stations in the country to develop better beekeeping skills and just knowledge on that as well. very new. They're working quite hard on it. I should mention as well that there's a lot of European influence. The Brits are very much involved in Africa, especially in Ethiopia, and trying to get beekeeping going. The Norwegians, Danish governments support it very much as well, different projects. But everybody's working on a different way of doing it. And the Danish and the Norwegian are really pushing the Zander hives or the Langstroth hives, which is just cost prohibitive. It's very difficult to manage that. So my big thing was, well, let's all work together, but it didn't work. Anyways, as I mentioned with the Ethiopian apiculture development, they're going to go quickly over some of these here. I mentioned here their traditional wisdom of beekeeping. They rely on the elders in the community on beekeeping. They got here 194, the stats, I had 174, they had 194. They anticipate the potential for honey is 500,000 metric tons of honey, which is more than China. So in the future, they could be quite a player in the market, and the potential for beeswax, all organic, is over 50,000 metric tons. They're at about 13 right now on that. And just to finish up, I got a chance to go on a bit of a trip while I was in Addis on my last weekend. I mentioned all the difficulties on getting to Oleta. If you go south, you get on a 4-lane highway. I did it again. Okay, put my hands down. I'm just about done, so I'll just hold it. Just a 4-lane highway, very, very fast way of getting around. On the right here, this is another Catalyst Plus advisors from the Northwest Territories. We had a guide from Addis to take us down there. We didn't know where we were going. And once we got to this lake in here, we were approached by this fellow in green, and it was like, you can't go there. And it was like, how come? And this is, our guide was talking with them. And well, apparently there's people in the bush, and if you walk by, you could be robbed. So he was our protector. So that's fine. I think it was $5 for our protector, and off we went. But I think I'm not sure what we were being protected from, but it was worth it. Again, I just want to point out on the left-hand slide here, there's an airplane that's flying into the Air Force airport, and the Air Force airport also has the Navy. So the Navy and the Air Force are in the one spot. And if you did remember when I said before, it's a landlocked country, but they have a Navy on that. The middle one here is as a water park that we ended up going for lunch on there. And on the right here, which is again, I apologize, it's for electric car charging system. China has a huge influence in Africa, especially in Ethiopia. A building that's going on, all these fancy 4-lane highways. They're now talking about 3 or 4 new roads being built. It's all Chinese money. Chinese electric cars, and of course you all know that Trump doesn't want China on that, there's a lot of EV vehicles in Ethiopia, and they're all made from China. And of course, my favorite part is you got to make sure you know what beer you're going to have, Abishai, if you go to Ethiopia. I would recommend that as well. And on the right there is a traditional coffee. And Riel knows, and Tim and that, I like my coffee, so this was also part of the highlight for me as well on that. And that's it, folks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Daryl.
I missed
it. No, you're right on the button. Any questions of Daryl?
Yeah, I don't hear too well, so a mic would be good.
So the main bees are Aedes cordillata? Like what kind of a main bee that the beekeepers are working there?
What species?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Bandisi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then in one of your pictures, actually, you had those majestic acacia trees.
Yes.
They produce actually honey also that doesn't crystallize. Is that the case there too?
It doesn't crystallize as fast as the other Sheffield honey, but it will crystallize, yes.
Okay.
Any other?
Yeah, in one of your slides, you said you did some research or work at dusk.
Yes.
And in the evening. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's just I'm sorry, I didn't explain that. The aggressiveness of the bees is that if you open the hive up in the middle of the day, poof, you would just, you wouldn't be able to do anything. They'd be right in your face the whole time. So the idea of why you work at dusk after the sun sets is just that the bees are back in the hive and they've calmed down a bit. But during the day, you can't even get close to a hive. Very, very aggressive. Actually, part of the process, the program that I was there was to help them with selecting honeybees. And of course, well, the first thing, what would you like to have your bees look like? And my assumption is that it would be less aggressive. Nope, they want more honey. So they're willing to put up with aggressive bees, but to make sure that they can increase the honey production. Very difficult to do. Matthew.
Okay, so you mentioned that the Danes and some others were pushing the Xander hive, maybe?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, so, and then there's the transitional?
Yeah,
and
that's
the
like
traditional.
Yeah.
So what was your perspective on maybe the most suitable hive for both honey production and like affordability? Would it be traditional or transitional?
Yeah, the transitional hive, the traditional is the ones with just a long, with two ends, and you just reach in and grab everything out. You destroy the colony. So the best one is the traditional hive, and the reason for that, again, is it's like the Kenya top bar. You can actually take the top off. They just use a starter strip on a piece of wood, and it's built on an angle because of the shape of it. Single story, you can't build it on top. Again, you can remove the honey without killing the colony or taking brood area, which again affects your quality.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 million beekeepers. That's a lot of beekeepers.
Oh yeah.
And 6 million hives. Did you see any kind of commercial management, or was it all just small farms?
That was the difficult part. The first trip I went in 2023 to Holetta, they run about 600 colonies, and they have about 50 to 60 on the station, and the rest of the 450, which the plan is that we would go there to work with selecting colonies, like trying to identify which one's the best honey producers, the less aggressive, and all sorts of this stuff. We could not go. And when I was there at that time, that's when Sudan had a bit of conflict. And there was a lot of people coming across the border into the northeast part of Ethiopia, which again caused a whole bunch of grief because now you've got all these refugees coming in, we don't have the resources for them and whatnot. It was just too dangerous to go to. And that was part of my whole plan, was that we were going to spend a lot of time in beekeeping, and we weren't able to do it. Yeah, but yeah, it's all small scale. They would like to get more commercial beekeeping, but as I say, cost to start. And I think the cooperatives is what like Johnny and Ebenezer are working on, are probably the best way that they're going to increase their production, is just by having communities with small beekeepers. They're hoping to get up to 20, 50 colonies. Again, it's a cost. And getting them up to that point, and then having 4 or 5 different people produce honey that way.
My question is, could you just highlight what was one of your biggest either failures or frustrations, if you don't want to talk about failures, and what was your highlight? What was your one success that you feel was really worthwhile? And the other one was, can you just explain your shirt? I think is that an Ethiopian shirt?
Yes. I can't take it off. They've got some gold thread here. But yeah, some of the, I think one of the biggest problems, and Riel talked about that, it was very difficult to deal with, is that I was sort of told from my Catalyst Plus people in Canada, plus the advisor, the client you were working with, and once you get there, you find out that it ain't going to happen that way. We couldn't go out and visit colonies, so then we had to spend more time just talking and discussing how we would hypothetically do something on that. So that was one of the things I was disappointed that we weren't actually able to do on that part as well. One of the things I think that did work, because I mentioned that Ebenezer there was with his limited, with his company of producing creamed honey, was able to do it. And I think that was good. At least they figured out how to do it. Johnny, I don't know. I haven't been able to connect with him if he was able to do that as well. But I think the thing was is that I was able to get across to them the technique. And the limitation of it is that they don't have the infrastructure to do it on a simple way of doing it. So, yeah.
So what's the approach of reproduction and expansion on hives? Do they just catch bees, or do they split, or?
It's, the majority of it is just hang a hive in a tree and hope the swarms come into it. This is the feral colonies. You can buy bees. Usually you buy a sack of them. And what quality, you don't know. It's just somebody is as that. They are working, the Voletta station is trying to educate people to split colonies. And again, just make sure that they naturally requeen themselves. Because you can't buy queens, so yeah.
Just one quick one. Did I understand you right, where most of the honey that's produced is going to make honey wine?
Yes, that's right. 89% of that 114,000 metric tons.
Are they exporting that, or is that consumed in Ethiopia?
It's consumed locally. Yeah. 134 million people. It's a lot, but it's used in religious services, and again, just any time.
Did you get a chance to taste it?
No, I didn't. I was trying to find some homemade tage wine, but I couldn't find any. But it's again, they do have a small domestic consumption, but it's the majority of it is used for making wine and used in the religious part there as well. I know we're John. Oh, watch the red line.
There was no mites. There's no mites.
Very few mites. They didn't even sample for mites. There was probably mites in hives, but they just naturally would never reproduced. And again, that's probably a lack of knowledge. From some of the readings that I've done, the African bee has a shorter brood cycle. Okay, we're looking at 21 days or so. There may be 19, so they may not have the same reproduction that we would have with a Western European bee.
Any other disease that we know about?
They screen for American foul brood and European foul brood. They have both of those. Again, they would just destroy the colony if they saw it. They don't have any surveillance programs on that. Again, it's just too difficult to travel and sample bees for that as well. Chalk brood is a bit of an issue, but again, not anything serious as well. The main problems is humans and ants and the large hive beetle. Ebenezer said he got 3 of his hives absconded to large hive beetles. So it is an issue. Easily protected. You can just make sure you put a screen on the front because they're so much larger than a bee. You can screen them to stay out. You just got to know that they're there.
Daryl, that's a wonderful presentation. Let's give him a big hand.
Yes.